A beggar girl, in tears, hands 2 babies into the arms of the billionaire and says, "Please, keep them. I can't bear to see my little brothers starving anymore." Upon hearing this, the billionaire cries and does something that changes all 3 of their lives forever. Nathan Cole adjusted his Italian silk tie in front of the mirror. Perfect, as always. The reflection showed a 48-year-old man impeccably dressed, grey at the temples, a tailored suit, flawless posture, everything exactly as it should be. "Mr. Cole, the car is waiting," announced the voice on the intercom. Nathan didn't reply. He just picked up the leather briefcase from the king-size bed and cast one last look around the bedroom. The Manhattan penthouse apartment gleamed with the morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The view alone was worth millions, literally, just like everything else Nathan Cole owned. "I'll be down in a minute," he finally responded. In the minimalist living room, his footsteps echoed on the imported marble floor. His life was like that now. Large empty spaces where the echo of his own steps was his only constant companion. The phone rang. It was Karen, his assistant, with the day's schedule. Meeting at 9 with the Japanese investors. Lunch with the mayor at noon. Conference call with Zurich at 3. Nathan listened, but his mind wandered. Another day, just like all the others. Business, contracts, millions changing hands. And then, back to the empty apartment, order in dinner, work a little more, maybe have a whiskey while watching the financial news, sleep, repeat. "And don't forget the charity dinner at 8, Karen concluded. "Cancel the dinner," he said suddenly. "But Mr. Cole, you confirmed your presence weeks ago. The press will be there and tell them I'm sick or traveling, whatever." Silence on the other end. After years working for him, Karen knew when not to push. "As you wish, sir." Nathan hung up and stopped in the middle of the room. What was he doing? The dinner was important. His absence would be noticed. It would generate gossip. It could affect business. Why cancel? Because he was tired. Tired of fake smiles, empty conversations, people who only wanted something from him. He walked over to the bar and poured himself a shot of whiskey. It was 8 in the morning. He never drank this early. It was one of the many rules he imposed on himself. Rules that built his empire. Rules he followed religiously. The ice clinked in the glass. Nathan stared at the amber liquid and then set it down untouched on the counter. No, not even that tempted him anymore. He walked to the office, his sanctuary. There, among monitors showing graphs and reports, he felt in control. It was where he spent most of his time when at home. Work was the only thing that still made sense. He opened the cabinet to grab some documents, and that's when it happened. An envelope balanced on top of a folder fell, scattering its contents on the floor. Nathan knelt to pick up the papers and froze. An old photo. Dylan at 6, smiling with 2 front teeth missing, holding a baseball trophy. Nathan beside him, an arm over the boy's small shoulder, both happy under the sun of some random Sunday. His fingers trembled as he touched the image, as if it was something fragile and precious, which it really was. Nathan pressed the photo against his chest for a moment, closing his eyes. The weight of that small piece of paper felt heavier than anything he'd ever carried. He remembered the day, Dylan's first baseball game. The boy had hit the ball and run as fast as his short legs would carry him. It wasn't a home run. He barely made it to first base, but the smile on his face when he looked to the stands, searching for his dad. Nathan swallowed hard. How many games had he missed after that? How many school plays, birthdays? Moments that would never come back. "It's just temporary work, honey," he would tell Lauren. "Once we're financially secure, I'll have more time." But that time never came. Enough was never enough. There was always another acquisition, another expansion, another market to conquer. Nathan put the photo back in the envelope and placed it in the desk drawer. His eyes landed on the phone. How many years since he had spoken to Dylan? 5, 6. His son must be over 20 now. An adult who grew up without his father around. Nathan picked up the phone, stared at it for a long moment, then put it back down. What would he say after all this time? "Sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I chose work." Empty words now. The intercom rang again. "Mr. Cole, The driver is worried about the time for the meeting. Nathan glanced at the clock. He was already late. Japanese investors hated delays. The deal was worth billions. "I'm on my way down," he answered automatically. He grabbed the briefcase, adjusted his tie once more, and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, looking back at the luxurious, empty apartment. For a second, a strange thought hit him. All that success, all the money, the power, the respect. Had it been worth it? The thought vanished as quickly as it came. Nathan Cole was a successful man, one of the richest and most powerful in the country. Of course, it had been worth it. It had to be. He shut the door behind him and headed to the elevator. In the elevator mirror, he adjusted his perfect tie once again, squared his shoulders, and put on his best, confident expression. What else was there to do, after all? This was his life now. But as the elevator descended, the image of that photo and the hollow feeling in his chest remained. Like an unanswered question, like a pain with no name. The meeting with the Japanese investors was a disaster. For the first time in his career, Nathan Cole couldn't focus. The image of Dylan's old photo invaded his thoughts in the middle of crucial statements. He stumbled during the presentation, mixed up numbers, called the head of the delegation by the wrong name. Karen watched him from across the table with growing concern. Nathan Cole never made mistakes, never lost focus. Something was seriously wrong. "I apologize. I'm not feeling well today," he finally said, interrupting his own explanation about growth projections for the next quarter. The leader of the investors, Mr. Tanaka, nodded politely, though coldly. "Perhaps it's better if we reschedule for another day, Mr. Cole." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a polite rebuke. Nathan knew he had just jeopardized a multi-billion-dollar deal. Certainly, Karen will be in touch to arrange a new date. Formal handshakes, forced smiles. The meeting room emptied quickly. "What's going on?" Karen asked once they were alone. "Are you sick? Should I call a doctor?" Nathan rubbed his temples. "No, I just need some air. Cancel my appointments for the rest of the day." "All of them, even the Zurich conference?" "All of them," he confirmed, grabbing his coat. Karen frowned. In 10 years working for Nathan Cole, she had never seen him cancel an entire day of commitments. "I'm walking home," he announced, heading for the door. "It's raining," Karen warned, "and it's nearly 20 blocks. Nathan didn't reply. The elevator door closed behind him. Outside, the rain fell in thin, steady chords, quickly soaking his Italian suit. Nathan didn't mind. The penetrating cold and the dampness were almost welcome. Something real. Something he could feel. He walked aimlessly, letting his feet guide him. Instead of heading to the apartment, he went in the opposite direction, toward a part of the city he rarely visited. The shiny steel and glass buildings gave way to older, less imposing constructions. People on the sidewalks no longer wore expensive suits, but simple, everyday clothes. The rain eased into a light drizzle. Nathan stopped on a corner, suddenly disoriented. He realized he was in a middle-class residential neighborhood with small shops, a bakery, a laundromat, a convenience store, ordinary places for ordinary people. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten all day. He spotted a little diner across the street and crossed toward it. The interior was simple but clean. The aroma of fresh coffee and homemade food filled the air. A middle-aged woman behind the counter smiled as he walked in. "What'll it be, honey?" Nathan hesitated, unused to such informality. His usual restaurants had Michelin stars, with maitre calling him Mr. Cole and sommeliers who knew his wine preferences. "A coffee. And a ham sandwich, please." "Coming right up. Sit wherever you like." Nathan chose a table in the back and looked out the window. Across the street was a small park. Even with the drizzle, a few children played on the swings, while moms and babysitters chatted on nearby benches. The waitress brought his order. The coffee was piping hot and strong, served in a regular mug. The sandwich was simple. Bread, ham, cheese, lettuce. No artisan bread or imported ham. Nathan took a bite and was surprised. It was good, really good. He ate slowly, watching ordinary life unfold on the other side of the glass. Ordinary people with ordinary problems, living ordinary lives, something he hadn't had in so long. After finishing, Nathan left a $20 bill on the table, more than 3 times the cost of the meal, and left. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the air clean and cool. He decided to walk through the small park on his way to... well, he still didn't know where he was going. He passed a playground with 3 children and 2 mothers, then a small pond where ducks swam peacefully. That's when he saw her. At the far end of the park, sitting on a bench still wet from the rain, a little girl. She looked exhausted, dirty, with tangled brown hair falling over her face, and in her arms, 2 babies wrapped in old, worn blankets. Nathan stopped. Something about the scene felt profoundly wrong. The girl seemed far too young to be caring for 2 babies. The children looked too small to be out in that damp weather. Where were the parents? He glanced around. No one paid attention to the little girl with the babies. Hesitantly, Nathan approached. "Hello," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" The girl looked up, intense blue eyes but red and swollen from crying. When she spoke, her voice was thin and trembling. "Mister, can you help us?" Nathan sensed genuine desperation in her voice. Up close, the situation looked even worse. The children's clothes were dirty and damp. The babies seemed asleep, or Nathan felt a tightness in his chest, maybe too weak to cry. "Yes, I can help. Where are your parents?" The girl pressed her lips tight, as if trying not to cry. "My mom, she began, but was interrupted when one of the babies let out a faint moan. Her face turned into pure despair, and then it happened. With a sudden movement, the girl held out both babies toward Nathan, her blue eyes now overflowing with tears that left clean streaks on her dirty face. "Please, keep them." Her voice cracked into a sob. "I can't stand watching my little brothers starve anymore." It was as if something broke inside Nathan, something that had been hard, cold, and dead for years. He felt a lump in his throat and, to his astonishment, a hot tear escaped his eye, rolling down his cheek. For the first time in years, how many? 5, 10. Nathan Cole was crying. It wasn't dramatic sobbing, just that single tear, carrying all the weight of loneliness, regret, the empty life he had built for himself. "I can't anymore," the girl continued, her voice choked. I swear I tried to take care of them, but I have no more food, and Luke has a fever, and Ben won't stop crying." Nathan knelt to her level. "What's your name?" "Sadie," she mumbled, still holding the babies out. "Sadie, I'm Nathan. I'll help you and your brothers, okay?" He hadn't planned to say that. The words just came out. The girl's eyes widened as if she couldn't believe it. Really? Really? Nathan had no idea what he was doing. Taking care of children. He, who had failed as a father, who had spent years building walls to keep feelings out. It was madness, but something stronger than reason moved him now. "Do you have anywhere to go?" "Anyone you can stay with." Sadie shook her head, her lower lip trembling. "Then come with me. I'll take you somewhere warm, and we'll get food and dry clothes." Without thinking of the consequences, without considering what it would mean for his carefully orchestrated life, Nathan Cole, the billionaire who had just ruined a multi-billion-dollar business meeting, opened his arms. Sadie hesitated for only a second before handing him one of the babies. The child was lighter than he should be, his body feverish even through the damp blankets. "This is Luke," she said, still holding the other baby, "and this is Ben." "Hi, Luke," Nathan murmured, awkwardly positioning the baby in his arms, realizing how unprepared he was. "Let's get out of here, okay?" He flagged down a taxi with a wave. The driver threw a suspicious look at the quartet, a man in a soaked suit, a dirty little girl, and 2 babies wrapped in faded blankets. "Where to, sir?" Nathan gave the address of his penthouse apartment. The taxi pulled away, leaving behind the park and its usual visitors, who would continue their normal lives. In the back seat, Sadie kept her eyes on Nathan, a mixture of hope and distrust in her tired gaze. "It's going to be okay," he said, not knowing if he could keep that promise. During the ride, Nathan tried to form questions in his mind. Where had these children come from? Where was the mother? How long had they been alone? But every time he opened his mouth to ask, he saw Sadie's wary look and decided to wait. She seemed overwhelmed enough already. Luke dozed in his arms, a restless sleep. Every now and then, the baby coughed or whimpered. Nathan could feel the fever's warmth through the blankets. Did they need a doctor? Probably. But first, a safe and warm place. The taxi stopped at the luxurious building where Nathan lived. The doorman nearly fell off his chair when he saw Nathan Cole enter with 3 visibly needy children. "Mr. Cole, are you all right? Should I call someone?" "I'm fine, Thomas. Please, don't call anyone. And I'd appreciate your discretion." The last sentence came with a meaningful look. Thomas nodded, perplexed. "Of course, sir." In the private elevator that led directly to the penthouse, Sadie remained silent, her eyes wide in the mirrored walls. Luke stayed asleep in Nathan's arms, but Ben began to whimper in his sister's. "Shh, Ben," Sadie whispered, rocking him gently. "You'll have food soon, I promise." The elevator opened directly into the penthouse's living room. Nathan saw his home through Sadie's eyes. The impeccable, massive space, cold and sterile, the elegant but impersonal furniture, the abstract art on the walls that cost more than many people earn in a lifetime, a place meant to impress, not to live in. "Come on," he said, leading them through the apartment. "Let's find a place for you to settle." The apartment had 4 suites besides the master, all impeccably decorated, all completely unused. Nathan chose the one closest to his. "You can stay here for now. There's a bathroom over there. You can take a hot shower and I'll get you something to eat." Sadie didn't move. Her eyes scanned every corner, as if looking for traps or memorizing escape routes. Nathan recognized that look. He used it himself in hostile negotiations. Caution, distrust, prepared for the worst. "Sadie," Nathan said gently, "I know you don't know me. You have no reason to trust me, but I promise you're safe here." She still didn't look convinced. "Okay, I'll go get towels and robes. You can warm up and then we'll figure out the next step, okay?" A slight nod. It was the most she could offer for now. Nathan went to the linen closet to get towels. He felt strangely nervous, as if about to close the biggest deal of his life. In a way, maybe he was. As he grabbed soft towels and bathrobes, he recalled the last time he'd had children in the house. Dylan and some friends, celebrating a birthday Nathan almost missed because of a teleconference. Lauren had planned everything, the cake, the presents, the activities. Nathan showed up for the last 20 minutes with a forced smile and a gift bought by his secretary. Dylan's disappointed look still haunted him. When he returned to the bedroom, Sadie was exactly where he'd left her, as if she were afraid to move. Ben was crying louder now, a sharp cry of hunger or discomfort. "He must be hungry," Nathan said, handing her the towels. "I'll see what I can find in the kitchen." Nathan's kitchen was rarely used. He usually ordered takeout or ate out. He opened the refrigerator, almost empty, except for some bottles of water, a bottle of champagne, and a jar of olives. The pantry wasn't much better. A few cans of tuna, a package of rice, coffee, tea, and imported cookies. "Damn," he muttered. What did small children eat? He had no idea. What did babies this age need? Milk. Baby food, and where would he get that now? He decided to start with rice. It was simple, neutral. He took out a pan he'd never used, still with the price tag, and put water to boil. His hands, normally steady when signing multi-million-dollar contracts, felt clumsy measuring rice. Back in the suite, he found Sadie sitting on the edge of the king-size bed, the 2 babies beside her. "The bath is ready if you want. I'm making something for you to eat." "What are you making?" Sadie asked, speaking for the first time since arriving. "Rice. It's all I have at the moment, but we can order more food later." A heavy silence settled. Nathan realized how surreal the situation was. A 48-year-old man bringing 3 unknown children into his apartment. What would the neighbors think? What would his board of directors say? And more importantly, what on earth was he thinking? "I need to check on the rice," he said, backing toward the door. "Make yourselves comfortable." Back in the kitchen, Nathan stared at the bubbling pot. His life was completely off track now. From seeing Dylan's photo that morning to these 3 children in his home, It was as if a hurricane had turned his world upside down. "What am I doing?" he whispered to himself. "What am I going to do with them? I don't know how to take care of kids." The memory of little Dylan asking for help with homework echoed in his mind. "Not now, son. I'm busy with work." Nathan felt a jab of genuine fear. What if he failed these children like he had failed his own son? What if he couldn't help them? Worse, what if he ended up hurting them somehow? The smell of something burning pulled him back to reality. The rice. He'd forgotten to lower the heat. "Damn it," he exclaimed, moving the pan off the burner. Too late. The bottom was burned. Crap! 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 A silent presence made him turn. Sadie stood in the doorway, watching him with wary eyes. Nathan felt ridiculously inadequate under that child's gaze. "Sorry for the word. And sorry, I burned the rice." Sadie approached slowly and peeked into the pan. "It just burned a little at the bottom. The rest is still okay." Nathan looked again at the pan. She was right. The top layer of rice still looked edible. "I thought I'd ruined everything," he confessed. Sadie shrugged. "I've eaten worse." Something about that simple statement hit Nathan deeply. What had this child been through? What kind of life did she have before he found her in that park? "The babies, your brothers, what do they eat?" "They eat everything now, but really soft. Maybe if you mash the rice." Nathan tried not to show his shock. Babies so small already eating solid food. But what did he know about children? "Sure, we'll mash it for them." He found some bowls and utensils, served up the rice, mashing a portion with a fork. "You must be hungry too," he said, placing a bowl in front of her. Sadie stared at the food intently but didn't move. "You can eat," Nathan encouraged. Still hesitant, she took a spoon and tasted a bit of rice. Nathan noticed how hard she tried to eat slowly and politely, even though her body probably wanted to devour the food. "I need to bathe them," Sadie said, eyes on the rice. "They're wet and cold." "Eat first," Nathan replied. "Then I'll help you with them." The girl hesitated, but hunger won out. She ate a few spoonfuls of rice, slowly at first, then more urgently. "There's more if you want," Nathan offered. She shook her head, but her eyes said otherwise. "Sadie, eat as much as you want, then we'll take care of your brothers, okay?" "Thank you," she murmured, serving herself a little more. Nathan found a lone apple in the fruit bowl and cut it into small pieces, placing them on Sadie's plate. "The apple's good too," he said after trying a piece. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "The rice is good, even with the burnt bottom." Then, almost imperceptibly, a tiny smile flickered at the corner of her mouth. So quick it could have been his imagination, but Nathan knew it wasn't. That little gesture of trust filled his chest with a sensation he hadn't felt in years, as if something very old and forgotten in him had started stirring again. While Sadie ate, Nathan prepared bowls for the babies. Luke and Ben were still in the bedroom, undoubtedly in desperate need of a bath and food. He had no experience with small children, but he suspected they needed more than mashed rice. "We need proper baby food," he said. "And diapers, clothes, a lot of things." "You're rich," Sadie observed, glancing around the luxury kitchen. "You can buy all that." Nathan followed her gaze. The designer kitchen, top-of-the-line appliances he rarely used, imported marble. Yes, he could buy anything these children needed. Money, at least, wasn't a problem. "Yes," he admitted, feeling a strange shame about his wealth in the face of their suffering. "Tomorrow morning, we'll go shopping. For tonight, we'll have to make do with what we have." Sadie finished eating, scraping the bowl clean. "Thank you," she said again, and now her smile was a bit less timid. "I'm going to bathe them now." "Need help?" "No," she answered too quickly. The distrust was still there. "All right, I'll be here in the kitchen if you need me." Sadie nodded and left. Nathan started cleaning up, feeling the weight of the last few hours. What had begun with an old photo found by chance had turned into this: 3 unknown children in his home. A responsibility for which he was totally unprepared. "What am I doing?" he whispered again, but without the same anxiety as before. Because despite the fear and inadequacy, something inside him seemed to have awakened. A purpose. A need that didn't come from outside, business, success, but from within. From a place so deep he'd forgotten it existed. Nathan heard the sound of running water in the suite's bathroom. He pictured Sadie trying to bathe two babies at once. Should he go help or respect her need for privacy? He decided to gather more snacks for them. He found a box of imported cookies and placed some on a plate, sliced more apples, poured fresh water into cups. As he arranged everything on a tray, Nathan remembered how many times Lauren had done this for Dylan, how many times she'd prepared meals, given baths, told stories, and how many times he'd missed those moments, buried in work, meetings, business. Faint laughter came from the bathroom. Either Ben or Luke must have done something funny. Sadie sounded more relaxed now. When the shower turned off, Nathan waited a few minutes, then knocked softly on the door. "I brought a few more things for you to eat," he said. The door opened a little. Sadie peeked out, wrapped in a huge robe that made her look even smaller. Behind her, on the bed, the two babies squirmed, wrapped in towels, looking more alert after the warm bath. "Thank you," she said, taking the tray. "Luke likes apples." "Great, there's plenty. And water too. Are you okay in there? Do you need anything else?" Sadie hesitated, as if considering something. "Our clothes are wet." "Ah, right. Let me see what I can find." Nathan went to his own bedroom. He had t-shirts that could serve as nightgowns for Sadie, and maybe for the babies. Not ideal, but it would work for one night. He came back with the t-shirts and handed them through the slightly open door. "Tomorrow we'll buy proper clothes," he promised. Sadie nodded, still wary but noticeably more relaxed than when they'd arrived. "Well," Nathan said, stepping back, "I'll let you rest. If you need anything, I'll be in the next room. Just call, okay?" "Okay," she mumbled, and then, almost inaudibly, "Good night. Good night, Sadie." The door closed softly. Nathan stood there for a moment, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Concern, certainly. Fear of what lay ahead. But also something lighter, warmer, something he hadn't felt in years. In his own bedroom, Nathan sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the phone. Should he call someone? The police? Social services? A lawyer? What was the right procedure after finding 3 abandoned children in a park? But something held him back. The image of Sadie's desperate eyes, begging for help. The fragile trust that had begun to form. The fear that the children would be separated if authorities got involved. "What am I going to do?" he whispered into the empty apartment. But part of him already knew the answer. Somehow, meeting these children, seeing the desperation and courage in such a small girl caring for her brothers, had awakened something he thought was dead in his chest. A chance, maybe, a chance to do something right, not to fail this time. He closed his eyes and saw Dylan's face, then superimposed Sadie's, Ben's, and Luke's faces. Children who needed an adult who truly cared, who was present, who put their needs above everything else. For the first time in years, Nathan Cole felt afraid of failing at something personal, something that really mattered. 3 days had passed since Nathan brought the children home, 3 days of adjustments, learning, and small victories. Nathan had hired a shopping team to bring everything the kids needed: clothes, diapers, toys, proper food. The guest bedroom quickly turned into a cozy space with 2 cribs and a comfortable bed for Sadie. The babies already seemed healthier. Luke no longer had a fever, and Ben was smiling more. Nathan learned how to change diapers after watching some online videos, a skill he never imagined he'd need. He made mistakes, of course, put diapers on backward, spilled milk, burned the pasta he attempted to make for dinner. But Sadie was always there, watching, sometimes quietly laughing at his awkward attempts, other times intervening gently to show him the right way. The girl's distrust gradually diminished. She no longer recoiled when Nathan approached. She no longer checked obsessively on her brothers every few minutes. She could sleep several hours without waking up in panic. Small progress, fragile but real. That night, after the babies finally fell asleep, Nathan found Sadie sitting on the living room couch, hugging her knees, looking at the city through the huge windows. The lights below formed a sea of bright dots. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly, not wanting to startle her. Sadie shrugged, not taking her eyes off the window. Sometimes it's hard. Nathan sat at the other end of the couch, keeping a respectful distance. I understand. I have nights like that too. Silence. Nathan had learned not to pressure her, to let Sadie set the pace of their interactions. She had walls around her, built by experiences he could barely imagine. From here you can see the park, she finally said, pointing to a dark patch among the city lights. Where you found us. Yes, Nathan confirmed. If you look during the day, you can see the trees and the pond. Sadie nodded, still gazing out. We slept there for 2 nights. Nathan felt a pang in his chest. 2 nights in the open air, with 2 babies, in the fall chill. Where were you before that? He asked cautiously. Sadie hugged her knees tighter. For a moment, Nathan thought she wouldn't answer, that he'd crossed an invisible line. In our apartment until the money ran out. Money your mom left. A slow nod. Nathan took a deep breath. Sadie, do you want to tell me what happened? With your mom, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, he quickly added. More silence. The kind of dense silence that seems to hold entire untold stories. She said she was going out to buy cigarettes. Sadie's voice was almost a whisper, and that she'd be right back. Nathan waited, not interrupting. That was 3 weeks ago. She left money in the kitchen drawer. She said it was for emergencies. Sadie fidgeted with the hem of the new nightgown Nathan had bought her, pink with star patterns, which she had timidly requested. I waited for her to come back. I took care of Ben and Luke the way she taught me, gave them baths, cooked. But the money started to run out. Her voice was monotone, as if reporting the weather, not describing the abandonment she suffered. I used the money to buy milk and diapers. When it was gone, the landlord came knocking. He said we were getting evicted. I didn't know what that meant, but I was scared. Nathan watched her slight frame against the vast city lights. She looked so small against the huge world outside. So I grabbed our things, just what fit in the backpack, and we left. I thought maybe we could find my mom on the street. Do you know why she didn't come back? Nathan asked gently. Sadie shook her head. Sometimes she disappeared for a day or 2, but she always came back, always. Until she didn't, Nathan finished. Until she didn't, Sadie echoed in a whisper. Do you have other relatives? Grandparents, uncles? My grandpa died last year. My grandma, I don't know where she is. Mom said she lived far away. And your dads? Sadie shrugged. Ben and Luke have different dads. And my dad? Mom said he left when I was born. I don't remember him. Nathan absorbed her every word, piecing together Sadie's life. A single mother with 3 kids, no family support, probably fighting her own demons. And then, the final abandonment. The first night, we slept in a subway station, Sadie continued, but a security guard saw us and started asking questions. I got scared they'd take the babies away. Mom always said we couldn't let anyone know we were alone or they'd split us up. The raw honesty of those words hit Nathan hard. This child's fear of being separated from her brothers, the responsibility she had taken on far beyond her years. So we went to the park. It was easier to hide there. During the day, we pretended we were waiting for our mom. At night, we slept in the bathrooms or under the benches. Sadie stopped speaking. A single tear ran down her face, but she wiped it away quickly, as if ashamed of showing weakness. What you did was very brave, Nathan said, taking care of your brothers like that. I wasn't brave, Sadie replied, her voice trembling for the first time. I was so scared. And when I saw you in the park, I just couldn't anymore. Luke was sick, Ben wouldn't stop crying, I was so tired. The admission seemed to cause her physical pain, as though admitting she had reached her limit was a terrible failure. Sadie, look at me. She turned her face slowly. What you did was extraordinary. Many adults wouldn't have managed what you did for your brothers. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Sadie's lower lip quivered. Her eyes filled with tears she struggled to hold back. But I almost gave them up, she whispered. Almost handed them to you and ran away. But you didn't. You stayed with them. And now you're all safe. Nathan's words seemed to open a floodgate. Suddenly, the sobs Sadie had been holding in burst out. Her small body shook under the weight of all she had endured. Nathan hesitated. He wanted to hug her, to comfort her, but he didn't know if she'd welcome that closeness, if she would allow it. To his surprise, Sadie moved first. Slowly, almost fearfully, she slid across the couch. Then, in a sudden motion, she threw herself against Nathan's chest, burying her face in his shirt, letting the tears flow freely at last. Nathan wrapped his arms around her, feeling how small and fragile she was. How long had this child been strong for everyone else? "It's okay," he murmured, stroking her hair. "It's okay to cry." And she cried. She cried like she probably never allowed herself to cry in front of her brothers. She cried for the mother who didn't come back, for the father she never knew, for the cold nights and fear, for the childhood lost too soon. Nathan let her cry until the sobs subsided, until her breathing returned to normal. When Sadie finally pulled away, she looked suddenly embarrassed, as if just realizing how close she'd allowed herself to be. "I'm sorry," she mumbled, wiping her face. "Never apologize. Don't ever be sorry for feeling." Sadie nodded, still sniffling a bit. Silence returned, but it was different now. Lighter, as though some of the burden had been released. "What about your family?" she asked suddenly. "You said you live alone. Where are they?" The question caught Nathan off guard. Now it was his turn to feel the weight of vulnerability. "I lost my family too," he answered after a pause. "Not in the same way, but I lost them." Sadie waited, eyes on him. Their roles were reversed. Now she offered him the space to share his story. "I was always busy," Nathan continued, struggling with the words. "Lauren, my wife, got tired of trying. My son, Dylan, he just wanted a present father." The old pain resurfaced, now sharper than ever, perhaps because, for the first time, he truly understood the impact of a father's absence. "One day they both left, and I never heard from them again. I was the one who pushed them away by not knowing how to stay." Sadie lowered her eyes, understanding. There was a wisdom in her that came from experiences far too harsh for someone her age. "Why don't you go after them?" she asked with the childlike directness that sometimes only children possess. The question hit Nathan like a punch. Why didn't he? What stopped him besides wounded pride, shame, fear of rejection? "I guess I don't know what I'd say," he admitted. "How do you apologize for years of absence?" "You could start by saying, 'I'm sorry,'" Sadie suggested, with the clear logic only kids can have. Nathan gave a sad smile. "It's not that simple. Grown-ups always make things complicated," she replied, with a wisdom beyond her years. Nathan couldn't help but laugh, despite the pain. "Yes, we really do." Silence returned, but now it was a shared silence. The silence of two people who had revealed their wounds to each other and somehow found common ground. "I think we should try to get some sleep," Nathan finally said. "Tomorrow we can think about what to do." Sadie nodded but didn't move. "What if my mom never comes back?" she asked in a low voice. The question hung in the air, heavy with all its implications. "Then we'll figure it out together," Nathan answered. "All I know is that you and your brothers are safe now, and I'll help you in any way I can." Their eyes met, and Nathan realized he was making a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. But at that moment, he meant every word. "Maybe taking care of you," he said, voice thick with emotion, "is the only right thing I've done in a long time." Sadie didn't respond with words. She just reached out her small hand and held his for a moment, a simple gesture conveying trust, gratitude, and perhaps the start of hope. Then she stood and walked silently back to the bedroom where her brothers slept. Nathan remained on the couch, gazing at the city lights below. The world he knew had changed completely in just a few days. And somehow, for the first time in years, he felt he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 2 weeks had passed since the night Sadie told him her story. An unlikely routine had settled into Nathan's apartment. Mornings began early, with Ben or Luke's cries, followed by breakfast in the kitchen that was now always stocked with child-friendly foods. Nathan had learned how to prepare purees, cut fruit into safe pieces, and even make animal-shaped pancakes that made Sadie smile. Afternoons were filled with playtime on the living room rug, where Nathan found himself sitting on the floor, building block towers that Ben would knock down with giggles. Luke was trying to crawl, and Sadie watched everything with relief and caution, as if she still couldn't fully believe in this new reality. Karen, Nathan's assistant, managed his business from a distance, baffled by the instructions to cancel all trips and move meetings to video calls. "Is everything okay, Mr. Cole?" she often asked. "Perfectly fine," he would reply while trying to wipe carrot puree off his shirt. But despite the apparent normality taking shape, a growing anxiety gnawed at Nathan. What would happen next? How long could he keep this undefined situation going? The children had no documents. There was no official record of them living in his apartment. Technically, what he was doing could be considered kidnapping. One Wednesday afternoon, while Sadie watched cartoons with the babies on the couch, Nathan locked himself in his office and typed into the search engine, "How to get custody of abandoned children." The results made his stomach sink. Legal processes, background checks, home visits, psychological evaluations, searching for biological relatives, and the scariest possibility, the children could be placed in different foster homes during the process. "I can't let them be separated," he murmured, closing the browser. But he also couldn't go on like this indefinitely. Eventually, someone would ask questions. The children needed medical care, schooling, a normal life. Nathan felt the weight of indecision. His entire life had been built on quick, decisive actions. He never hesitated to close billion-dollar deals, but this was different. Far more was at stake than money. The next morning, Nathan received an unexpected call from his company's board of directors. There was an urgent issue with one of his major investments in Asia. His presence was requested immediately. "Impossible," he replied. "I'm unavailable to travel right now." "Nathan," said the deep voice on the other end, "you've never been unavailable before. What's going on?" "Personal matters," he cut in sharply. "Nothing that affects my ability to run the company." But the truth was that, for the first time, his attention was divided. While he spoke on the phone, his eyes followed Sadie around the room, watching as she carefully tucked a blanket over Luke sleeping on the couch. After hanging up, Nathan made a decision. He needed professional help, someone who could advise him on legal options without immediately calling the system. Through discreet contacts, he scheduled a meeting with a family law attorney. He explained his situation in the vaguest terms possible over the phone, only mentioning he needed guidance on a delicate situation involving children. The attorney, Dr. Melissa Ortiz, arrived at the apartment the following afternoon, a middle-aged woman with a serious expression and a leather briefcase. Nathan had asked Sadie to stay in the bedroom with the babies during the meeting. "Mr. Cole," Dr. Ortiz said after hearing the full story, "I understand your concern, but I need to be clear. What we have here is an irregular situation. Technically, these children are missing. If the mother reported them as lost, there could be a search underway." "She abandoned them," Nathan insisted, feeling anger rise. "She left a child caring for 2 babies. I understand your outrage, but legally, we must follow proper procedures. The first step is to notify social services." The words social services made Nathan clench his fists. And what would happen to them? Dr. Ortiz hesitated slightly. They would attempt to locate the mother or other relatives. If unsuccessful, the children would be placed in state custody temporarily while your custody request is reviewed. Separated? Possibly. Not every foster home can accommodate 3 children at once, especially with 2 babies. Nathan shook his head. Unacceptable. Mr. Cole, I understand your frustration, but the longer you keep these children without informing the authorities, the more complicated your legal situation becomes. The conversation continued for another hour, with the attorney detailing the Longshield's complicated process that would follow. By the end, Nathan felt even more anxious. "I need to think," he said, walking Dr. Ortiz to the door. "Thank you for your advice, but I need more time." "Don't take too long," she cautioned. "The sooner we start, the better your chances." After the attorney left, Nathan sensed a silent presence behind him. Sadie stood in the hallway, eyes wide and fixed on him. "Who was she?" Sadie asked, her voice trembling. "A friend, a lawyer who came to give me some advice. Sadie's face went pale. About us. Nathan hesitated. Should he lie, protect her from the complicated truth? But something told him Sadie had faced enough harsh truths already to be spared now. Yes, about you. I'm trying to figure out how I can help more permanently. Sadie's eyes filled with fear. Are you going to send us away? No, of course not, he said quickly, stepping closer. I'm trying to find a way for you to stay, legally. You promised, she whispered. You promised we'd stay together. And we will. I just need... The intercom interrupted. It was the doorman announcing the arrival of a social worker the law firm had hired for a preliminary assessment. Part of Dr. Ortiz's advice to strengthen Nathan's future custody case. Send her up, Thomas, Nathan replied. Realizing too late, he hadn't explained this visit to Sadie. The girl stepped back, panic in her eyes. Social worker? Sadie, listen. It's just a preliminary conversation to help me understand the process. But Sadie was already running back to the bedroom. Nathan followed. Sadie, please, trust me. She stopped at the bedroom door, her whole body tense like a tightened wire. Mom said social workers break up families, that we can't trust them. It's not like that, Nathan tried to explain. They want to help. The doorbell rang again, indicating the social worker had arrived. Stay here with the babies, he said. I'll talk to her first, okay? Then you can decide if you want to talk too. Sadie didn't respond, just slipped inside the bedroom and closed the door. Nathan sighed deeply before answering. The social worker, Mrs. Peterson, was a robust woman of about 50, holding a notepad and wearing an analytical expression that seemed to survey every inch of the apartment as she entered. Mr. Cole, thank you for seeing me. Doctor Ortiz gave me a brief outline of your situation, but I'd like to hear it directly from you. Nathan invited her to sit and repeated the story of finding Sadie and the babies in the park. Mrs. Peterson took occasional notes, nodding. And since then, they've been living here with no legal formalization? She asked in a neutral tone that still sounded accusatory. Yes. I didn't know what to do at first, and then I got attached to them. Understandable but problematic, she commented. Mr. Cole, your financial situation is obviously comfortable, but taking guardianship of 3 children isn't just about material resources. There are emotional and psychological considerations. Not to mention your own family history, she consulted her notes. I understand you have a biological son you're not in contact with. Nathan felt his stomach drop. Yes, but it's different. Certainly, but it indicates a pattern we need to consider. Mr. Coles, I'll be frank. Your profile, a single, workaholic man with no recent experience with children, is not typically ideal for a permanent placement, especially for 3 traumatized children. Her words hit Nathan like physical blows. Given the complexity of the situation, Mrs. Peterson continued, raising her voice slightly, and the lack of proper family structure, it's most likely that, after notifying the authorities, the children would be placed temporarily in a specialized shelter while... A small noise interrupted her. Nathan turned and saw Sadie in the hallway, eyes wide with horror. She had overheard the last words. A shelter, she whispered, the word coming out like a scared moan. Oh, you must be Sadie, Mrs. Peterson said, adjusting her glasses. May we talk a bit? But Sadie was already running back to the bedroom. Nathan excused himself and followed, finding her sitting on the bed, knees drawn up, rocking back and forth. Sadie, he began, sitting beside her. It's not what it seems. You promised, she repeated, not looking at him. You promised we'd stay together. And we will. This is just part of the process. Lies, she whispered. Grown-ups always lie. Nathan tried to touch her arm, but she pulled away. I have to finish talking to Mrs. Peterson, he said, feeling helpless. Then we'll talk more, okay? I promise I won't let anyone separate you. Sadie didn't reply. Nathan reluctantly returned to the living room, where the difficult conversation with Mrs. Peterson continued. After another hour of invasive questions about his life, routine, and intentions, she left with a final warning. Mr. Cole, my recommendation is that you formalize the situation as soon as possible. The longer you wait, the more complicated it becomes. When she left, The apartment's silence pressed down on Nathan's shoulders. He went to check on Sadie, but she pretended to be asleep, turned toward the wall. The babies truly were asleep in their cribs. That night, Nathan could hardly sleep, He tossed and turned, replaying the social worker's words, the fear in Sadie's eyes, the promises he'd made. What was the right thing to do? Start the legal process and risk losing the children, or remain in this irregular situation that could collapse at any moment? Around 3 in the morning, he got up for a glass of water. Passing the children's room, he quietly opened the door to check on them. In the dark, he could make out the cribs and Sadie's bed. All seemed calm. He returned to his own room, determined to make a decision by morning. Maybe he should call Lauren for advice. She had always been better at family matters. But that idea made him feel even more inadequate. A man who couldn't be a father to his own child, now trying to parent 3 traumatized kids. Sleep finally claimed him in the early hours. When he woke, it was already past 8, much later than usual since the children arrived. The apartment was oddly quiet. Nathan got up quickly and went to the next room. He opened the door and felt his blood turn cold. The room was empty, completely empty. The cribs, the bed, no sign of the children. "Sadie," he called, already running through the apartment. "Luke, Ben." Nothing but the echo of his own voice. In the living room, he noticed Sadie's small backpack. The one she'd arrived with was gone. In the fridge, some apples and water bottles were missing. And at the front door, the security system log showed it had been opened at 4:27 a.m. Sadie had taken her brothers and left. In the dead of night, Nathan sank onto the couch, stunned. The apartment that had slowly filled with life, laughter, and tiny footprints over the past weeks was back to being that cold, empty space. He paced in circles, hands on his head, muttering, "They left me too. What did I do wrong? I must be a terrible person if nobody wants to stay with me." The words spilled out laden with old pain, now with a fresh cause to resurface. The pain of abandonment, rejection. First Lauren and Dylan, now Sadie, Ben, and Luke. It was happening again, and Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that the problem was always him. Always would be. 6 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours. Nathan lost track of time wandering through the empty apartment. He called the doorman, the building security, nearby building staff. No one had seen 3 children leaving in the middle of the night. "How is this possible?" Nathan murmured, despair rising by the minute. How do 3 small children just disappear? His thoughts spiraled. Should he call the police? But that would trigger the exact system Sadie feared. Social services would be involved. The children could be separated. On the other hand, 3 children were alone on the streets. 2 of them were babies. It was autumn, nights were getting colder, and rain threatened to return. "What do I do?" he repeated, running his hands through his disheveled hair. He grabbed the phone, finally resolved to call the authorities when the doorbell rang. Once, twice, 3 times in quick succession. Nathan rushed to the door, heart pounding. He looked through the peephole and felt his legs weaken. Sadie, holding Ben in her arms, Luke at her side, clinging to her leg. He opened the door with shaking hands. "Nathan," Sadie said, her voice breaking with sobs. "Please, it's Ben." Nathan immediately noticed the baby's condition. He was pale, eyes half closed, breathing fast and raspily. His little body seemed to burn with fever. "He's really hot," Sadie continued, tears flowing freely. "I tried giving him a cool bath, like Mom used to do when we got sick, but he's just getting worse." Nathan didn't think twice. He took Ben from Sadie's arms, feeling the alarming heat radiating from the small body. "You two, come inside," he said urgently, not hiding his worry. "I'll call an ambulance." Sadie entered, pulling Luke by the hand. They looked exhausted, their clothes dirty, eyes sunken, fear evident in every move. Nathan was already on the phone, describing Ben's symptoms to emergency services. After hanging up, he turned to Sadie, who stood trembling in the living room. "The ambulance is on its way," he said, voice shaking. "He'll be okay, Sadie." She nodded, but her gaze was pure despair. "I shouldn't have left," she whispered, staring at the floor. It's my fault. Nathan knelt in front of her, still holding Ben, who let out a weak moan. It's not your fault, he said firmly. You're here now. You're safe. Luke, next to his sister, let out a small whimper. Nathan noticed he also looked unwell, pale with puffy eyes. The doorbell rang again, the ambulance arriving with impressive speed. Nathan opened the door, and 2 paramedics rushed in with their gear. The baby has a high fever and labored breathing, Nathan explained quickly. It started today, from what I understand. The paramedics examined Ben with professional efficiency. One turned to Nathan. We need to take him to the hospital immediately. Are you the father? The question caught Nathan off guard. He looked at Sadie, then at Ben, then at Luke. Yes, he answered without hesitation. Yes, I'm the father. Something changed in Sadie's expression at that moment, a mix of surprise and, maybe, relief. I'll ride in the ambulance with them, Nathan continued. Sadie, could you grab jackets for you and Luke? We'll all go together. The girl nodded and ran to the bedroom. While the paramedics readied Ben for transport, Nathan looked at little Luke, who was anxious and scared. Hey, buddy, he said, crouching to Luke's level. Your little brother will be okay, all right? The doctors are going to help him. Luke looked at Nathan with wide eyes, not fully understanding but sensing the reassurance in his voice. He stretched out his small arms, asking to be picked up. Nathan lifted him, feeling his slight weight against his chest. Sadie returned with the jackets and a small backpack. Let's go, Nathan said, still holding Luke. And don't worry, Sadie, I won't leave you alone. The ride in the ambulance was tense. Ben was hooked up to monitors, receiving oxygen. The paramedic asked questions Nathan tried to answer as best he could, aware of Sadie's watchful gaze. Does he have any pre-existing conditions? Allergies? Are his vaccines up to date? Nathan hesitated, looked at Sadie, improvised answers. It was surreal, a man who dedicated his life to business now pretending to be the father of 3 kids he'd met less than a month ago. At the hospital, chaos continued. Ben was rushed into treatment, while Nathan, Sadie, and Luke waited in the lobby. A nurse appeared with forms to fill out. Child's full name, she asked. Nathan glanced at Sadie, who looked panicked. He realized he didn't know the children's last name. Maybe Sadie didn't either. Benjamin Cole, he answered, making a decision. He's 2 years old. A lie, but a necessary one at the moment. And you're the father, correct? I'll need your ID and insurance card. Nathan handed over his identification and the premium insurance card he rarely used. The nurse jotted down the details, occasionally glancing at Sadie and Luke. And the mother, she asked. Not present, Nathan said, feeling Sadie tense up beside him. We're separated. The nurse nodded, asking no further questions. She handed him the paperwork and went back to her station. The 3 of them sat there in that sterile waiting room. Luke fell asleep on Nathan's lap, exhausted by the ordeal. Sadie remained silent, eyes locked on the doors where Ben had disappeared. Sadie, Nathan began after a long silence. What happened? Why did you run away? The girl kept staring straight ahead, but her lips quivered. You were going to send us to a shelter, she whispered. I heard that woman talking. No, Sadie, I would never. Lies, she cut him off, finally looking at him. You called the social worker. They were going to separate us. Nathan took a deep breath. I was trying to find a way to keep you all legally, so nobody could separate us. I messed up not explaining it to you better. Sadie studied his face, searching for any sign of deceit. I promise, Sadie, I never wanted to get rid of you. Then why did that woman talk about a shelter? She asked in a small, hurt voice. Because there's a process. Rules we have to follow, Nathan said, trying to pick the right words. But I would never let that happen. Ever. Before they could continue, a doctor appeared at the door. Family of Benjamin Cole. Nathan stood, still holding Luke, who was asleep. Sadie gripped his free hand tightly. I'm the father, Nathan said, the words sounding more and more natural. Your son has pneumonia, the doctor explained. A lung infection. Quite serious for such a young child, but we managed to control his fever and improve his breathing. Relief flooded Nathan so intensely, his legs almost gave out. "Will he be okay?" Sadie asked, voice barely audible. The doctor smiled kindly at her. "He will, sweetheart. Your little brother is responding well to the medication. With proper antibiotics and care, he should recover soon." "Does he need to stay in the hospital?" Nathan asked, worried about how the children would cope after their recent scare. The doctor checked the chart in his hands. "Usually, yes, but—" He looked at the two exhausted children. "Since we've already lowered his fever and his oxygen levels look good, we can release him to recover at home if he's closely monitored." "I can guarantee that," Nathan replied decisively. "In that case, I'll prescribe antibiotics and fever reducers. You'll need to check his temperature every 4 hours, make sure he drinks plenty of fluids, and come back immediately if the fever goes up or his breathing worsens." Nathan nodded, mentally noting every instruction. "If you prefer, I can recommend a pediatric nurse to help for the first few days." "Yes, please," Nathan agreed at once. "Anything that helps him recover." The doctor handed him the prescriptions and explained each medication thoroughly. Sadie listened attentively, as if memorizing every word. "Can I see him?" she asked anxiously. "Of course. We're finishing up his meds, and then he'll be ready to go home." Minutes later, they were taken to a room where Ben lay on a small bed, still hooked to monitors, but visibly better. His eyes were open, and he gave a tiny smile seeing his sister. "Ben!" Sadie exclaimed, rushing to his side. "You're better!" The baby reached out for her, and she carefully took his hand. Nathan watched, Luke still asleep in his arms. A strange and powerful sensation overwhelmed him, a mix of protectiveness, tenderness, and fierce determination. These children were his responsibility now, his kids, for all intents and purposes. While the nurses got Ben ready for discharge, Nathan made some calls to Karen, asking her to prepare the apartment for their return. To his personal lawyer, instructing him to immediately start the process for provisional custody of the 3 children. And finally, to the chairman of his company's board, informing him he'd be taking an extended personal leave. An hour later, they were all in a taxi heading home. Ben slept in Nathan's arms, wrapped in hospital blankets. Luke, now awake, sat on Sadie's lap. She looked exhausted, but her eyes stayed on her brother's. "Sadie," Nathan said gently, "I want you to know I will never separate you. Never. And I'll do everything I can so we can stay together, like a family." She looked up at him, still wary, but with a flicker of hope. "Promise?" she asked quietly. "I promise," he replied, with conviction that came from the depths of his being. "I'll change whatever I need to, my home, my routine, my work, so we can be a real family." Sadie nodded slowly, as if absorbing each word. When they arrived at the apartment, Karen was waiting with everything prepared. The children's room was tidy, with clean cribs and Sadie's bed made up. A homemade soup simmered on the stove. Ben's prescriptions, picked up from the pharmacy, were organized with clear instructions. In the days that followed, Nathan immersed himself fully in this new life. He learned how to administer medications, how to recognize the baby's different cries, how to prepare proper meals. He cancelled business trips, rescheduled meetings as video conferences, and reorganized his calendar to always be present. The pediatric nurse the doctor recommended came daily to check on Ben, whose condition improved steadily. She also taught Nathan about infant care, from how to hold a baby correctly to ways to encourage their development. Most importantly, Nathan initiated the legal process to gain provisional custody of the children. His lawyer worked tirelessly, navigating the complex bureaucracy, using Nathan's influence and resources to speed things up. It was a battle. There were questions about his capability as a single father, his family history, and the unusual circumstances under which the children arrived. But Nathan persisted, driven by a determination that surprised even his closest associates. A month after the hospital night, Nathan received the official document granting him provisional custody of Sadie, Ben, and Luke. It wasn't permanent yet. There would be more hearings, evaluations, and reports. But it was a start, a legal acknowledgement of what his heart already knew. That night, after the babies were put to bed, Nathan found Sadie at the kitchen table, focused on something. "What are you doing?" he asked, sitting beside her. Sadie quickly covered the paper with her hand as if it were a secret. "Nothing," she mumbled, blushing a little. Nathan smiled. "That's okay. You don't have to show me if you don't want to." He got up to make some tea, giving her space. When he returned with 2 mugs, tea for himself and hot chocolate for her, Sadie had turned the paper over. "It's for you," she said timidly. "But it's not very good." Nathan took the drawing, feeling a lump in his throat as he examined it. It was simple, done with colored pencils, but unmistakable. 4 figures holding hands, 1 large, obviously him, and 3 smaller ones, Sadie, Ben, and Luke. At the top, in carefully formed letters, it said, "The Cole family." "Sadie," he said, voice thick with emotion, "this is the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen." "Really?" she asked, uncertain. "Absolutely. May I keep it?" She nodded, a small smile lighting up her tired face. That night, after Sadie finally went to bed, Nathan took out the drawing again. He looked at it for a long time, feeling something deep and powerful stir within him. Carefully, like handling a priceless treasure, he placed it in the drawer of his bedside table. The Cole family. The family he had almost lost before it even began. The family he was now determined to protect and love against all odds. 6 months had passed since that night at the hospital. Life in Nathan's penthouse had changed completely. The once minimalist and impersonal apartment now showed clear signs of family life, toys scattered in the living room, children's drawings taped to the fridge, framed photos on tables, Nathan with the kids in the park, at the zoo during their first Christmas together. The daily routine had shifted too. Nathan now started each day making breakfast, while Sadie helped the boys get dressed. Afternoons were for park visits, evenings for baths, stories, and lullabies. Important meetings were scheduled during Sadie's school hours, and video calls took place once the kids were asleep. To many, it was hard to recognize the smiling man pushing strollers in the park as the ruthless billionaire of boardrooms. But to Nathan, the transformation made perfect sense. It was as if, for years, he'd lived only a fraction of his life, the part devoted to professional success, while the rest lay dormant, waiting to be awakened by the 3 children he now called his own. The provisional custody was close to becoming permanent. The social worker who once frightened Sadie now visited regularly, impressed by the family's progress. Nathan's lawyers were confident that, given the mother's prolonged absence and the emotional and material stability he provided, adoption was just a formality. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. Yet something still nagged at Nathan in the quiet hours of the night. One crucial piece was missing, an old wound that, despite all the recent joys, still throbbed painfully. Dylan, his firstborn, the son he hadn't seen grow up. One Saturday morning, while the kids played under the nanny's supervision, Nathan locked himself in his office. On the desk, a blank sheet of paper and the fountain pen his father had given him at graduation. He never used it for business, only for the most personal matters. He took a deep breath and began writing. "Lauren, I hope this letter finds you well. I know it's been a long time. I know you might not want to hear from me. You have every right. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to reopen old wounds. I'm writing because something extraordinary happened in my life, something that changed everything, and I felt you and Dylan should know. 6 months ago, I found 3 abandoned children in a park, a girl and 2 babies, her little brothers. They were alone, hungry, terrified. I didn't plan it. I didn't calculate anything. I just brought them home, and I decided to keep them. They're now my children, legally, soon, but in my heart, they already are. Through them, Lauren, I realized everything I lost, everything I threw away when I chose work over our family. Every time I refuse a meeting to watch Sadie recite a poem at school, I remember the plays of Dylan's I missed. Every time I wake in the night to soothe Luke from a nightmare, I think of how many nights Dylan might have needed me and I wasn't there. I'm not asking for your sympathy. I'm just sharing a truth I took too long to learn. No professional success is worth missing. Your child grow up. I know Dylan must be a young adult now, maybe in college, maybe already working. I know nothing about the man my boy became, and that is my greatest regret. I don't expect him to forgive me. I don't expect to make up for lost years. But if, one day Dylan wants to speak to me, I'm here, truly. Not the man I was, always busy, always distant, but someone who finally understands what matters. I'm enclosing some photos of my new family. If you ever want to meet them, you'd be most welcome. With care and respect, Nathan. He reread the letter several times, tweaking a word here, a phrase there. It wasn't a billion-dollar contract. It was more important than that. When finally satisfied, he placed it in an envelope with some photographs, the kids in the park, Ben taking his first steps, Luke laughing while trying to feed himself and getting covered in food, Sadie proudly holding her first school report card. He wrote the address carefully, the last one he had for Lauren, a quiet suburb in Connecticut. He didn't even know if she still lived there. Maybe the letter wouldn't arrive, maybe it would be thrown away unread, but he had to try. As he sealed the envelope, he heard Sadie's laughter in the other room, followed by the baby's excited babbling. He smiled, feeling that now familiar wave of affection that washed over him whenever he thought of his children, all of them, including Dylan. He stood and walked to the window, looking at the city below. For so long, he believed success meant building empires, amassing fortunes, conquering markets. Now he knew that true success was something else, found in small moments, in little hands holding his, in the smiles that greeted him at the end of the day. "Dad!" Sadie's voice called from the other room. "Ben is walking again. Come see." "I'm coming," he answered, slipping the letter into his jacket pocket to mail later. Before leaving the office, he glanced one last time at Dylan's photo on his desk, the only one he'd kept all these years. Next to it now was Sadie's drawing. It read, "The Cole Family." Maybe one day, he thought, that family could be complete. 3 weeks passed without a response to his letter. Nathan tried not to get his hopes up. After all, it had been years. Lauren might have moved away. Dylan might not want contact. Life moved on, and he now had 3 children needing his attention and love. The Cole family's new routine was firmly established. Sadie was attending 3rd grade at a good nearby school, where she quickly made friends. Ben and Luke went to a half-day childcare program, giving Nathan a few hours to work in his home office. That Thursday afternoon, Nathan was reviewing some contracts while the babies napped after lunch. Sadie would be back from school in an hour, driven by the chauffeur Nathan had hired just for her. He planned to take the kids to the planetarium that weekend, part of his effort to give them fun, educational experiences. The intercom buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. "Mr. Cole," said the doorman's voice, "there's a young man here asking for you. He says he's your son." Nathan felt his heart stop. What's his name?" he asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. "Dylan Cole, sir." A buzzing filled Nathan's ears. The room seemed to spin. Dylan, his son, here after all these years. "Send him up, Thomas, please." Nathan hung up and stood in the middle of the room, unsure what to do. Should he wait by the door, sit casually on the sofa? What would he say? How should he act? Before he could decide, the doorbell rang. He took a deep breath, walked to the door, opened it. There he was, Dylan, the son he hadn't seen in 8 years. He was no longer the 14-year-old boy Nathan remembered. He was a young man now, tall, broad-shouldered, with his mother's determined jawline. But the eyes were undeniably Nathan's, intense blue, observant. "Dylan," was all Nathan could say. The young man didn't smile, but he didn't show hostility either. There was caution in his eyes, a contained expectation. "May I come in?" he asked simply. "Of course. Please." Nathan stepped aside, struggling to control the trembling in his hands. It's good to see you." Dylan entered, glancing around. The apartment had changed considerably since his last visit. The expensive artwork had been replaced by framed children's drawings. There were boxes of toys, piles of storybooks on the coffee table, a soft rug with animal prints on the floor. "The place looks different," Dylan commented, stopping in the middle of the living room. Everything's different, Nathan agreed. Would you like to sit down? I can make coffee or... I'm fine, thanks. Silence settled between them, heavy with 8 years of absence and unspoken words. I got your letter, Dylan finally said. Mom passed it on to me. Is she okay? She's fine. Remarried 3 years ago. Mark's a good man. Nathan nodded, feeling a twinge of sadness but also genuine relief that Lauren had moved on. And you? He asked. Are you in college or... I graduated last year. Columbia. Business and economics. A small, involuntary smile appeared on Nathan's face. Like your old man. Not exactly, Dylan said, a hint of coolness in his voice. I'm working with sustainable investments, companies that have a positive social and environmental impact. That's admirable, Nathan replied, genuinely impressed. Another silence. Dylan seemed to be gathering his thoughts, deciding how to proceed. So, he said at last, indicating the surroundings. You have kids now? Yes, Nathan answered, feeling a wave of emotion at the thought of them. 3, like I explained in the letter. Did you adopt them? Legally? We're finalizing the process. But yes, for all intents and purposes, they're my kids. Dylan nodded slowly, taking it in. I didn't expect you to come, Nathan admitted. After all this time, I thought... I didn't expect to come either, Dylan interrupted. I kept your letter for days, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to throw it away unread. Part of me was curious. I understand, Nathan murmured. Then the photos fell out of the envelope, Dylan went on. I saw those kids. I saw you with them. It was just strange. Nathan waited, giving his son space to express himself. For years, Dylan continued, voice steadier now, I told myself the same story. You didn't know how to be a dad. You didn't have it in you. Business would always be your only passion. Each word hit Nathan like a precise arrow, but he knew he deserved everyone. Then I saw those photos, Dylan said. You on the floor playing with babies. You at a school presentation smiling like an idiot. All the things you never did with me. The pain in Dylan's voice was tangible, and Nathan felt tears sting his eyes. I don't know what to say, Dylan, except that I'm sorry, deeply sorry. You deserved a better father than I was. Before Dylan could respond, the sound of tiny footsteps interrupted. Ben appeared from the hallway, just woken from his nap, still in pajamas. He stopped abruptly upon seeing a stranger in the living room, eyes wide. Dada? He asked, confused. Nathan looked from Ben to Dylan, momentarily frozen between two worlds. It's all right, Ben, he finally said, going over and picking up the little one. This is Dylan, your big brother. Ben studied Dylan curiously, then smiled shyly and hid his face against Nathan's shoulder. Dylan watched the scene with an expression hard to read. Maybe surprise, maybe renewed hurt, maybe something more complex. Is Luke still sleeping? Nathan asked softly to the boy in his arms, trying to keep the situation as normal as possible. Ben nodded, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Want to watch some TV while he wakes up? Just a little bit, okay? Ben nodded enthusiastically, and Nathan carried him to the couch, turning on a kids' channel with the volume low. When he returned to Dylan, his son was observing him intently. You really have changed, Dylan murmured. The sound of the front door opening interrupted them again. Sadie entered, carrying her school backpack and chatting happily with someone behind her, the driver, Nathan assumed. Dad, Mrs. Miller said we can go to the Science Museum on Saturday and... Sadie stopped upon noticing the visitor. Oh, sorry, I didn't know we had company. It's all right, Sadie, Nathan said, gesturing for her to come closer. I'd like you to meet someone very special. This is Dylan, my son. Sadie's eyes widened. She looked from Dylan to Nathan and back again, then slowly approached the young man. Are you the Dylan from the picture? She asked. The one on Dad's desk? Dylan seemed surprised. He keeps a picture of me. In his office, Sadie confirmed. When I asked who it was, he got sad. Said it was you, his first son, and that he missed you a lot. Something flickered across Dylan's face, a momentary softening of his guarded expression. I'm Sadie, the girl continued, holding out her hand formally. It's nice to meet you. Dylan shook it, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. Nice to meet you too, Sadie. Are you staying for dinner? She asked, always practical. I can help set the table. Dylan hesitated, the smile disappearing. I can't stay long. I just came to see. Sadie's disappointment was obvious, but she recovered quickly. Maybe another day, she asked, hopeful. Dylan didn't answer directly, just looking at Nathan with a complicated expression. Why don't you check on Luke? Nathan suggested to Sadie, sensing Dylan might want privacy, and see if Ben is okay with the TV. She nodded, understanding the unspoken message. It was really nice meeting you, Dylan, she said before heading off. I hope you come back soon. When she left, silence returned between father and son. She seems like a great kid, Dylan finally commented. She is, Nathan agreed. They all are. They've changed my life. Dylan walked to the window, posture rigid as if holding back a storm of emotions. For a long time, he said without turning around, I was angry, really angry. I tried to hate you. It would have been easier. Nathan stayed quiet, just listening. But then I grew up, and I realized it wasn't hate. It was hurt, disappointment. Dylan finally turned to face his father. Because I loved you, and you weren't there. The intensity of those words hit Nathan like a tidal wave. Dylan, I didn't come for an apology, Dylan cut in. I came because I needed to see with my own eyes, to confirm if what those photos showed was real. And is it? Nathan asked, voice barely above a whisper. Dylan glanced toward the area Sadie had taken Ben, where Luke was likely stirring awake. Then he looked back at Nathan. I see what you've done for them, he said slowly, the words weighted with meaning. And for the first time, I felt proud of you. Nathan felt those words as an overwhelming wave of emotion. Pride. His son was proud of him. Of all his life's achievements, nothing felt as important as that. Dylan took a deep breath, watching his father for a moment. Then he added quietly, I don't know if I can forget everything, but I see you're trying. That means a lot. Just don't disappear again. Nathan, eyes brimming with tears, replied, I won't. I'm here, for real, for you, for me. A moment of silent understanding passed between them, not a complete resolution, not total forgiveness, but a start. A door that, after years, was opening just a crack. Dylan glanced at his watch. I have to go. Already? Nathan asked, unable to hide his disappointment. You don't want to meet Luke or stay a bit longer? Not today, Dylan said, grabbing the jacket he'd left on a chair. I need to process all this. Nathan nodded, trying not to show how deeply the quick departure hurt. I understand. They walked together to the door in silence. Before leaving, Dylan paused. This doesn't mean, he began, searching for the right words. I'm not promising anything. I don't know if we can fix what was broken. I know, Nathan replied. Just the fact you came means the world to me. Dylan nodded, a short, tense gesture. They seem like great kids, he said, looking toward where Sadie and the little ones were. You're doing a good job with them. I'm trying, keep it up. And with those words, Dylan stepped out, closing the door softly behind him. There was no hug, no promise to return. Just that acknowledgement, you're doing a good job with them. That meant more to Nathan than any corporate award ever could. He stood there, staring at the closed door, feeling a swirl of emotions, sadness at how brief the meeting was, pain for the still open wounds, but also a fragile, faint thread of hope. He's gone, asked Sadie's voice behind him. Nathan turned to see her carrying Luke, with Ben holding onto her leg. Yes, he said softly. He had to go. Is he coming back? She asked. Nathan looked at the door once more, then at the expectant faces of his younger children. I don't know, Sadie. I hope so. But it's his choice. He looked sad, she observed, with the keen insight of a child who'd endured hardships. I think he's confused, Nathan explained, reaching out to pick up Luke. Sometimes grown-ups take longer than kids to figure out their feelings. Like you took a while to figure out you wanted to be our dad, Sadie asked. Nathan smiled, touched by her simple but profound question. Exactly, he said. But when I realized it was the best discovery of my life. Sadie smiled, satisfied with his answer. Then he'll figure it out too. Maybe, Nathan said, not wanting to raise false hopes. In the meantime, how about we make that chocolate cake you guys love? The kids cheered at the suggestion, and soon the kitchen was filled with laughter and flying flour. But while he helped Ben stir the batter and watched Sadie show Luke how to help, Dylan's image remained fresh in Nathan's mind. His oldest son had left without promising to return, but he had come. After 8 years, he had taken the first step, and for now that would have to be enough. 6 more months passed since Dylan's visit. In that time, much had changed. The children's adoption finally became official after a process that demanded all of Nathan's perseverance and resources. Sadie, Ben, and Luke were officially Cole. Their full names, Sadie Elizabeth Cole, Benjamin Thomas Cole, and Lucas Andrew Cole, chosen with care, preserving their previous identities yet symbolizing a new beginning. The family's routine was firmly established, balancing Nathan's work, where he delegated far more responsibilities and rarely traveled, with Sadie's school life and the boys' daycare. The company's board, initially skeptical of the CEO's new lifestyle, ended up accepting it when they realized that, ironically, Nathan had become even more efficient in his decisions, more focused, more decisive, more human in his leadership. Over these months, Dylan called a few times. Brief, cautious conversations that gradually grew more frequent. He sent gifts on Sadie's birthday, a set of astronomy books that she adored. He also visited twice more. Short visits still marked by an emotional distance, but without the palpable tension of that first encounter. On this particular Saturday morning, Nathan was making pancakes in the kitchen, while the kids watched cartoons in the living room. It had almost become a weekend ritual: animal-shaped pancakes, fruit cut into stars and hearts, freshly squeezed orange juice, simple little luxuries he never imagined could make him so happy. The kitchen, once immaculate and practically unused, now boasted drawings pinned to the fridge, colorful utensils bought especially for the children, and tiny handprints smudged on the lower cabinets. Nathan didn't mind. Quite the opposite. Every sign of the children's presence filled him with a deep satisfaction no business deal had ever given him. "Kids, breakfast is ready," he called, placing the last elephant-shaped pancake on the plate. Sadie arrived first, guiding her younger brothers by the hand. Ben, now 2.5, walked confidently, while Luke, almost 2, still had the unsteady, enthusiastic gait of new walkers. "Look, Ben, this pancake looks like an elephant," Sadie said, helping him into his booster seat. "Fante," Ben repeated, clapping. Nathan smiled, watching them interact. It was amazing how Sadie, at just 8 years old, naturally took on a protective big sister role. She still had occasional flashbacks, nightmares, moments of anxiety if one of her brothers cried too long, but she was generally thriving, transforming into a cheerful, smart, and confident child. School had been a challenge at first. Sadie had never attended formal classes, and her adaptation was gradual. In the first few weeks, Nathan got almost daily calls from the school counselor reporting episodes of crying, or moments when Sadie refused to part with her belongings, clutching them in her backpack, a behavior the psychologist said was common in children who'd experienced deprivation. As he helped Luke into his seat, the phone rang. "Sadie, can you start serving the boys?" "I'll be right back." She nodded, taking charge competently. "Hello?" Nathan answered. "Nathan, it's Lauren." He nearly dropped the phone. Lauren, his ex-wife, Dylan's mother. They hadn't spoken directly in years. Whatever little communication existed had been through lawyers or, more recently, Dylan himself. "Lauren, hi. How it's good to hear your voice." A brief silence. "Dylan told me about the kids," she said at last. "About how you changed." "Yes," he confirmed, unsure how else to respond. How to sum up in words the profound transformation of the last months. "I'm in town," Lauren continued, "visiting my sister. Dylan suggested I stop by to meet them." Nathan's heart pounded. Dylan had suggested it. That meant more than any direct statement ever could. Of course, when would you like to come? Actually, I'm calling from your building's lobby. For a moment, Nathan couldn't speak, stunned. Nathan, Lauren's voice sounded uncertain. If this is a bad time. No, he said quickly. Please, come up. We're having breakfast. There's plenty of pancakes. He hung up, trying to process the situation. Lauren here now. The woman he once loved, whom he deeply hurt by his absence. Dylan's mother. Someone who knew the old Nathan, not the man he'd become. Who was that, Dad? Sadie asked when he returned to the kitchen. It was Dylan's mother, my ex-wife. She's coming to visit. Sadie's eyes widened. The lady from the wedding photo in your office. That's the one. She's pretty, Sadie remarked thoughtfully. Is she staying for breakfast? I think so, Nathan replied, noticing how easily Sadie accepted the situation. We'll need another place at the table. When the doorbell rang a few minutes later, Nathan felt a nervousness he hadn't experienced since his teenage years. He smoothed his t-shirt, ran a hand through his hair, and opened the door. Lauren looked as elegant as he remembered, her blonde hair now shorter, a few lines around her eyes, but the same directly intelligent gaze. Hi, she said. Hi, he replied. Come in, please. Lauren stepped inside, taking in the apartment with curiosity. It's different, she commented. Everything is, Nathan said. He led her to the kitchen, where the kids were still finishing breakfast. Kids, he said. This is Lauren, Dylan's mum. Sadie immediately stood and offered her hand. Hi, Miss Lauren. I'm Sadie. These are my brothers, Ben and Luke. Lauren smiled, shaking Sadie's hand. Nice to meet you, Sadie. Dylan told me a lot about you. Really? Sadie's eyes lit up. Did he tell you about my astronomy books? I'm reading about Jupiter. It has 79 known moons, and the Great Red Spot is a giant storm that's been going on for over 300 years. Lauren laughed, genuinely charmed by the girl's enthusiasm. Yes, he mentioned your passion for stars and planets. He said you're very smart. Sadie blushed with pleasure. He is too. He showed me how a telescope works last time he came. He said he'd take me to the planetarium one day. Lauren gave Nathan a look, a mix of surprise and a hint of approval. Dylan had talked about taking Sadie to the planetarium. That meant he was planning future visits, deeper involvement with the family. Would you like to join us? Nathan offered, pulling out a chair. The rest of breakfast passed surprisingly peacefully. Lauren chatted with Sadie about astronomy, helped Luke not spill his juice, and laughed when Ben tried to get her attention by tossing banana bits. After the meal, while the kids went to the living room to play, Lauren and Nathan stayed at the table in a charged silence. They're lovely, Lauren finally said. They're amazing, Nathan agreed. They changed my life. So it appears. Nathan mustered courage. Lauren, about the past, I'm sorry. For everything. For not being the father Dylan deserved. The husband you deserved. She nodded slowly. It took a very long time, Nathan. I know. But it's never too late to change, to fix what can be fixed. She paused, choosing her words. Dylan is trying. He won't admit it, but your letter, those photos, affected him. He wants to believe you've really changed. Hope bloomed in Nathan's chest. He means the world to me, always did, even when I couldn't show it. The doorbell rang again, interrupting them. Expecting someone else? Lauren asked. No, Nathan answered, standing up. When he opened the door, he felt his breath catch. Dylan stood there, holding a package. Hey, he said, looking just as surprised as Nathan. Mom told me she was coming over, so I thought I'd... But if this is a bad time... No, Nathan said quickly. Come in. Your mom's here. We just finished breakfast. Dylan entered, glancing around, apparently searching for something. The kids are in the living room, Nathan explained, understanding his silent query. They had barely made it to the living room entrance when Sadie spotted Dylan and ran toward him. Dylan, you came, she exclaimed, stopping a step away. Did you bring more books? He grinned, an honest smile without the usual tension. Not today, Star, but I brought something else. He held out the package to her. For all of you. Sadie carefully opened it, revealing a familiar board game. Monopoly, she cried. "Like the one you said you used to play as a kid." "I thought we could play together," Dylan suggested. "You and me against, well, the rest of the family." The word family hung in the air for a moment, heavy with meaning. "Dad?" Ben suddenly cried out, running toward Nathan and wrapping his arms around his legs. Everyone turned to look at the toddler. It was the first time he'd called Nathan Dad. Until then it had been Dada or simply Pa. "Dad," Luke echoed, mimicking his brother and also running to hug Nathan's legs. Nathan felt a lump in his throat. He knelt, embracing them both, trying to hold back tears. When he raised his eyes, he saw Sadie watching, a gentle smile on her lips. "Are we going to play, Dad?" She had never called him that before, always Nathan, sometimes Dad, but never that affectionate, intimate Dad that meant so much more. Nathan looked at Sadie, seeing certainty, trust, and belonging in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart," he answered, voice trembling. Dylan watched, a faint smile on his face. Lauren, standing beside him, had tears in her eyes she was trying to hide. Morning turned to afternoon as they played. Lauren and Nathan acted as the bank, while Dylan and Sadie formed an unstoppable team against Ben with constant help, and Luke, who was happy stacking colorful money and toppling little plastic hotels. At one point, when Sadie got up to grab juice for everyone, Lauren moved closer to Nathan. "I never thought I'd see this," she whispered. "Dylan and you in the same room, no tension, no obvious hurt." "Me neither," Nathan admitted. "The kids are the bridge, aren't they? Especially Sadie." Nathan nodded. "She has a way with people, a wisdom that belies her age. Probably from what she went through." Lauren watched the girl returning with carefully balanced cups. "She reminds me of someone," she remarked. "Who?" "Dylan, when he was little, before things changed." The observation struck Nathan like a realization. It was true. The same determination, the same bright intelligence, the same sensitivity. Father and daughter, though unrelated by blood, shared something deeper. Hours later, after spirited rounds of Monopoly, popcorn, and laughter, the children were finally worn out. Ben fell asleep on the couch, and Luke grew fussy, a sure sign he was exhausted. Lauren said her goodbyes, promising to return another day. To Nathan's surprise, she gave him a brief hug before leaving. "You've done a good job, Nathan," she whispered. "With all of them, I'm proud of you." The unexpected praise warmed his heart. Of all people, Lauren knew exactly how much he had changed. Her acknowledgement meant more than any other. Surprisingly, Dylan stayed behind. "I'll help put the kids to bed," he offered. Together, father and son worked as a team. Dylan carried a sleeping Ben to the bedroom while Nathan dealt with a cranky Luke. Sadie followed, assisting with pajamas and toothbrushes, well versed in her brother's bedtime routine. When the little ones were finally asleep, Sadie asked Dylan to read her a story too. He agreed at once, sitting on the edge of her bed. Nathan watched from the doorway as Dylan read The Little Prince, using different voices for each character, pausing so Sadie could ask questions or comment. By the end, she could barely keep her eyes open. "Good night, Star," Dylan whispered, tucking her in. "Good night," she murmured sleepily. "You'll come back, right?" "I will," he promised. "More often, promise." Satisfied, she closed her eyes. Dylan lingered for a moment, watching her drift to sleep, then joined Nathan in the hallway. As they walked back to the living room, the silence between them felt comfortable, not strained. "You're really good with them," Nathan commented. Dylan shrugged. "It's easy. They're great kids." "They are," Nathan agreed. "Sadie adores you." Dylan sat on the couch, suddenly serious. "I've been thinking a lot since your letter. About us. About what happened. About everything." Nathan sat in the armchair across from him, giving him space to continue. "It wasn't easy coming here," Dylan confessed. "That first time, I was ready to see the same man, to confirm nothing had changed, that you were still the same workaholic I always knew." Nathan didn't interrupt, though every word cut a little. "Then I saw you with them. How you listen to Sadie when she talks, but really listen. How patient you are with the boys. It was like seeing a stranger. A stranger I wish I'd known when I was a kid." Dylan stood restless and wandered to the window again, the same spot they'd shared in his first visit. Nathan joined him, side by side. In the reflection, it was clear how alike they were, same profile, same eyes, same stance. They stood quietly for a long moment, gazing at the city. Then, without warning, Dylan turned and hugged his father, a strong, desperate hug that held years of absence and hurt, but also hope and forgiveness. Nathan hugged him back with equal intensity, unable to stop tears streaming down his face. It was as if, in that embrace, years of distance dissolved, not completely, but enough for them to see a path forward. When they finally let go, Dylan looked into his father's eyes and said, "I see you've changed. You're not the same man. I still have a lot of hurt, but if you're really here now, maybe I can get over it. Just be patient with me, Dad." Nathan held back sobs. "I'll wait as long as it takes. Thank you for giving me this chance." Dylan stayed for dinner, then spent the night in his old room, now converted into a guest room. And the next morning, to Nathan's surprise, he suggested they all go to the park. "I promised to show Sadie how to fold a paper boat that actually floats," he explained. "We can sail it on the pond." So on a sunny Sunday morning, all 5 of them went to the park, the same park where it had all begun, where Nathan found Sadie and the babies months ago. But now, instead of fear and desperation, there was sunlight, laughter, blankets on the grass, and melted ice cream on little fingers. Nathan watched from a short distance as Dylan taught Sadie to fold the special paper he'd brought. The boat took shape in her small hands, guided by Dylan's more skillful fingers. Ben and Luke ran in circles around them, sometimes pausing to watch the progress before resuming their energetic explorations. Dylan stood and took Sadie's hand, smiling. "Let's go, little sister. Let's see if our boat floats." They walked toward the small pond, the boys following close behind, squealing excitedly. Nathan followed at a slight distance, observing without interfering. The scene before him was like a painting he never thought he'd see. His 4 children together, connected. A family he never knew he could have. A family he never knew he deserved. Nathan felt something new and definitive settle in his chest, a sense of belonging. He looked at the 4 people who now made up his world and said, voice trembling with emotion, "My children, my children." And so, amid laughter, tiny steps, and genuine smiles, they began a new chapter. A family built on the choice